Hey everybody, welcome back. I am bored. COVID made me bored, and today I'm looking at Dragon Ball Super Heroic Battle. This is a segment or video continuing my sort of filler games, the kinds of games that don't involve a lot of rules, doesn't require a lot of setup. Taking it down is easy. It's not difficult to explain the concepts. It's fun or silly or just flat out entertaining. It's not a game that you would take seriously. You would just have fun because you're looking to fill in that 15, 20 minutes or maybe 30 minutes most of your time to just have a good laugh with your friends or with family. So, because you guys probably know by now, I enjoy Dragon Ball themed games. This is my fourth or fifth game that I have that's Dragon Ball themed, and it never gets boring. This is based on Dragon Ball Super. It is a dexterity game when specifically this is a flicking game. Something different, a little bit of mix. Not card play, not miniatures. You're just flicking and trying to take out your opponents. The gameplay is very, very simple. There is a small amount of time to do setup, but it's not complicated at all. So in this game, you will be one of four characters. It plays up to four for 2 to 4 players, around 30 minutes or less. And it's from IDW, and they suggest ages 8 and up. But I think, again, you can probably do 6 or 7 would be fine too. I've played with my nephews that are under the age of 8, and except for some of the rules, at the end of the day, you just can have fun just flicking the discs around, and it's quite entertaining. So, having said that, you've got your 4 characters that you can choose from, and your players will be choosing one of the 4, Vegeta, Goku Black, Goku, and Zamasu. And they all have abilities. They also have a power rating that you'll be keeping track of, as well as a health rating. And the game provides you with a few tokens to keep track of these things. So let's just go with Goku and Goku Black. Let's just choose these 2 characters. So for both these characters, one of the things you're going to need for sure, there's no game board, but you need a big table. Ideally a big table. Small table, you can do that too. I'd say you can get away with a 3 foot by 3 foot square table. I've played on that and it works. I've also played on a much larger dining room table. The most important part, and you can play on the floor. The most important part is, one, if you're playing on the floor, make sure you're not around any ventilation grates because you're going to lose your tokens very, very quickly. Second, if you are going to play on a surface like a table, it has to be relatively smooth. So if you're playing on sort of like a granite floor might be okay, but tiled floors where the grout marks or the grout lines between the tiles are a little thick and there's sort of a curved edge, that could create a problem. If you're hardwood floors and it's pretty seamless between each plank, I think you'd be fine. Table would be best, but I played this on the floor too. Carpet sucks because you're flicking and there's too much friction. And even right now, the table that I have here, I do have a sort of a cover on top, and it's not. I mean, it's okay. You can get away with it, right? For your characters, aside from your table, you'll need your character cards. You'll be given a health tracking token, which starts at their highest health, which is 8. You'll also be given I don't know exactly what this is. It's a little icon of the character powering up. And that would go starting at 500. It goes up to 8,500. Power is important here because you'll be spending or exhausting your power to perform powerful attacks. And these attacks come in the form of discs. You'll be selecting, based on your character, a disc matching that character. And here we have Goku. He is in his Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan form. And we have Goku Black, who I believe in his God form as well. Right there. There you go. And once you've selected that, the next thing will be Ideally, you have your reference cards, if you're playing on a table, as far away from the battlefield as possible because you don't want it to interfere. And it would be good then to define what the actual battlefield is, because obviously if you have any discs that come into contact with your character card, you don't want that to happen. So ideally these would be out of play, but there for you to reference, and you would have your character discs. In addition to that, you would be setting up 4 scenery cardboard cutouts. It comes in a part like this, and you just slide this in, and you just randomly just toss it somewhere on the table and set it up. And what this provides is, 1, it does provide a little bit of cover, and 2, if your character disc, if you're flicking your character disc, and it just so happens to come into contact with this scenery, it gets destroyed, but you take 1 health damage. So there'll be 4 of these scattered on the table. Let me just pull one more out just to show you. And it's random. And the next thing you'll be putting out are energy tokens. These are power-up tokens. And I believe there are 9 of them. But there's a whole handful that you'll take. And what they recommend is you literally just flip them onto the table. However they land is however they are. And you'd be doing that with all 9 energy tokens spread out on the board. Each energy power-up token represents 500 power. The next thing you'll be doing is you will have 7 Dragon Balls. And the Dragon Balls serve sort of a multi-purpose in this game. So you'll be doing the same thing, sort of flipping it out wherever it lands. And there you go. So it would be ideally randomly scattered as best you can. The players would take opposite ends of the board. I don't think in the rule book it specifies exactly where they need to be. They just need to be across from each other. And yeah, I'm looking at it. They're saying at least 3 feet by 3 feet table. And you can place yourself in the 4 corners as long as you are not adjacent or next to your opponent. And it makes sense. 4 players, 4 corners, unless you're playing on a circular table. And you'd be ready to go. So your characters would be somewhere out in the corners, and you'd be ready and prepared to attack. So in terms of gameplay, on your turn, and you can choose, I think it's whoever's the biggest Dragon Ball Z fan or Dragon Ball Super fan goes first. I'm pretty sure that's pretty arbitrary. So rock, paper, scissors. If you decide who goes first, you go in clockwise order, starting with player number 1. And they have 2 options during their turn. They can move and perform a special ability. They can perform a special ability and then move, but you can only move once during your turn, or you can power up. So we'll just focus on power up first. So when you power up, you'll be taking your character's disc and you will be placing it on its edge and standing it upright. And by doing so, this immediately gains you 500 power. Then your turn is over. When your turn is over, it passes to the next person. And during that time, they will be doing whatever they need to do. If they're going to move, they may try to attack you, or they may try to collect some of these tokens. If it comes back to your turn, you have successfully powered up the number of turns times 500. So in a 2-player game, you'd be powering up 1,000. I think 1,500. Sorry, 500 at the beginning, then another 500 during your opponent's turn, and when it comes back to you, it's another 500. So you'd be at 1,500. So because you start at 500, I'd be at 2,000 in terms of my health, or my power. And having that power allows me to use my special abilities. The other thing is, let's just say, if, for example, my opponent just so happens to knock my disc over. Now, whether it's they knock me with their character or I'm knocked over because they've used a special ability, I will potentially lose the power that I've been trying to gain. So let's say on my turn, I have flipped my character on his edge. I automatically gain 500 points or 500 power. Now it's Goku Black's turn. I would be gaining another 500 during that turn. And then let's just say he just so happens to attack me. I'll show how the attack works in a minute, but let's say he attacks me, and let's just say as a result, my disc falls on its face side up. When I do that, whatever I've earned, I keep. So I gained that 500 during Goku Black's turn, so I'm at 1500. But if I fall down, on face down, I lose whatever I gained. So I'm back to 1000. So there is a sort of a risk that you take when you want to do a power-up, but you need to power up if you want to perform special abilities. In order to collect, so on your turn, you can move, and moving would be a result of flicking. And you'll want to flick to try to either attack your opponent, put yourself in a position to attack your opponent with special abilities from your character card, or you want to collect the tokens on the board. So if I come into contact with any of these tokens, if my disc comes into contact, I immediately collect the token. For power-up tokens, I immediately gain 500 power. So I would raise my power level accordingly. If I just so happen to flick hard enough that I come into multiple discs or multiple tokens, I collect whatever I touch. When it comes to, and that's it. Once you've collected these tokens, they're discarded. They are no longer in play. They are off the battlefield, and you can collect them somewhere to be redistributed once all the power tokens are gone. So once you've gone through, or during the course of your battle, you have collected all the power-up tokens, and everything is off in terms of power tokens. They're all gone. For the next turn, you would redistribute it onto the battlefield the same way you did it for the initial setup. For the Dragon Balls, if I come into contact with a Dragon Ball, I gain it. I keep it beside my player board, and I can use this for a later time. Dragon Balls serve two purposes, I think. Two? I think two purposes. The first purpose is you can use it to heal 1 health. So when at the beginning, not the moment you get it, so I would collect it on my turn. At the beginning of my next turn, I can use the Dragon Ball to heal my character 1 health. And then I would discard the Dragon Ball. It's no longer usable. And then that is before, during my turn, before I make any moves, use my special abilities, before anything, I need to use that first to heal my health. The other thing I can do at the beginning of my turn, if I have a Dragon Ball, is I can make a wish. And that's one of the fun things about this game, is making the wish. So with the Dragon Ball, I can make a wish to modify the way the game is played. So you can't make a wish to say I win the game, but you can make a wish that affects the way the game is played. So for example, if you were to say, to affect the way the game's rule is played out, I think there's kind of a sort of subjective way to look at this. But the way I played is, so for example, a wish would be you need to use your left hand to flick your character disc. And that applies to everyone, including yourself. So it works out great if you're a lefty, but if you're not, then that makes it harder. Or you can be specific. You can only flick your disc with your non-dominant hand and the pinky finger. So you have to flick with your pinky finger of your non-dominant hand. Or you have to flick the disc with your eyes closed. So there's a couple ways that you can modify the way you play the game's rules. And I'm not even sure if you can reverse, say, for example, all the power tokens are now Dragon Balls, and all the Dragon Balls are now power tokens. That's another possibility. So you can do that. And that effect, that wish, remains in place until someone uses their Dragon Ball to wish everything back to normal, or to another variation. So that is the other use of this Dragon Ball. And once you've made that wish, the Dragon Ball gets discarded. When all the Dragon Balls have been collected and all the Dragon Balls have been used, because remember, you don't have to use them the moment you get them. You use them when you need to at the beginning of your turn. Once all the Dragon Balls have been collected and used, you can redistribute it back onto the battlefield the same way you would redistribute the power-up tokens. So on my turn, let's just say Goku has earned his energy to over 9,000. No, wait, he's 8,500. He has a couple abilities here, special abilities. His, obviously, Kamehameha, his continuous one, and his Spirit Bomb. And you'll see that there is a symbol, the action symbol, and the disc. There are 3 types or 3 sizes of discs that come in this game. Each character may use something different. I think Vegeta uses the red ones, but there is a blue, very large disc, a yellow medium disc, and a red small disc. And the symbol in front of here indicates the number of discs that you can flick. And the action obviously is showing that you can only flick it. And, oh, sorry, not the number. The first 2 symbols is the damage that is inflicted. So the first 2 smaller symbols here means that the amount of damage, what do you have to do to make that damage happen, and what disc do you have to flick? So 2 damage, flicking a yellow disc, a successful hit on a character would produce 2 damage. The continuous one, it says here you have 2 damage, you're flicking 3 yellow discs, and you're flicking them one at a time. Each time the disc hits the character, it does 2 damage. And the Spirit Bomb, you're flicking the 1 large blue disc, and if you make contact or hit your opponent, it is 4 damage. 4 damage of health. So, for Goku, on your turn, if you choose not to power up, you have the option to move first and then perform a special ability if you can afford it. That means you have to have a power to meet that requirement. So here, sorry, his Kamehameha is 1,000 power to do it, 3,500 for the continuous one, and 5,500 for his Spirit Bomb. So you have to be able to pay it. On your turn, if you decide to use a special ability, you can use as many special abilities as often as you want, provided that you can pay the power for it. So if you do the Spirit Bomb and you're at 5,500, you have used up all your power, you only had that one chance to do the Spirit Bomb, you can no longer do another special attack, and therefore your turn would be over. So when you're putting yourself into position, so let's just say I want to put myself in position first, I can flick. I didn't get close enough, I didn't make contact with the power token, and now, if I have 5,500, I spend my full power, I place the indicated disc for my special ability attack as close to my character as possible without actually coming into contact, because you don't want to flick or have him touch your character. And you'd be flicking, I have it in the angle, I'd be flicking to try to get Goku Black. And I do. So this is a successful hit. Goku Black would lose 4 health, and now it would be his turn. If I wanted to, instead, I just wanted to use my Kamehameha, I spend, out of my 5,500, I spend 1,000, I could flick once, and then I could spend another 1,000, I can flick again, that's 2 damage to him, so he's down to 6, he's down to 4, I spend it again, and he's down to 2, and I could spend 1 more, and that's it. So I could do all of that in 1 turn if I had enough power for it. In some of my games, because I've played this with my nephew, that can be a little bit unfair. You can knock out an opponent very quickly, especially if you power up to the point where you have lots of power to spend. So we typically may just keep it down to, as a variation, just one attack. One attack per turn, and that's it. If you really want a less than 5-minute game, yeah, by all means, you can definitely do multiple attacks in one turn. The other item of attack is if I so happen to attack the character with my character. And if I attack him and I manage to hit him, there's two things that take place. I need to be able to have hit him to the point where there's enough space between my character and my opponent that I have moved him to count as a successful hit. And they have this token to measure that distance, which is basically the same distance as one of these other tokens. So you would measure it. If for whatever reason, let's just say I came into contact and I only moved him that much, and I were to use this to judge the amount of distance, this would not count as a valid attack. And so therefore it doesn't count. And now if Goku Black were to attack me, he could probably hit me quite far. So damage can stack depending on the circumstances. So if Goku Black is here and Goku is attacking and I hit him hard enough, so I hit him, but then I flew into the scenery, and now instead Goku Black would take 1 point of damage, and I would take 1 point of damage because I flew into the scenery and damaged myself, and now we would move the scenery out of the way. But had I hit Goku Black, who hit the scenery, and he also came into contact with the Dragon Ball, first of all, he'd collect the Dragon Ball because he touched it. Second of all, he would take 1 damage for me hitting him and 1 damage for him hitting the scenery, so he would be down 2 damage. The other stackable damage is if you fall off the table. So if you knock your character, and as a result, on the floor it's different if you play on the floor. So if you have a sort of boundary, if they reach that boundary, it would count. But let's just say you're on the table, you hit the character takes 1 damage because he's hit, and let's just say he also fell off the table edge, that's another damage. If you fall off the table with the character, you take a damage too. So damage can stack very quickly, and depending how ridiculous you decide to play, you can easily be flying everywhere. Things are just chaotic, but it's a lot of fun. If your character ever falls off the table, you would take this back, put it on your character card, and at the beginning of your next turn, you would come back onto the battlefield anywhere you want to be to continue play. So that is pretty much the breakdown of the rules. It is a very quick, very fun flicking game, and when you have 4 players playing together, it can be quite fun. You're trying to get power, gain power, you're trying to avoid or position yourself into an attack, and like I said, on your turn, if you're going to move, you can move once and then do your special ability if you can afford to pay it by your power, or you can do your special ability first, and then you can move. So there's a little bit of sort of, I guess, limited strategy when it comes to planning your attacks or positioning yourself. There you have it. It is Dragon Ball Super Heroic Battle. It is a fun, flicking game that I consider a filler game. It's in this nice little tin that you could probably stuff in your backpack and be on your way. It doesn't take very long to set up. You can just easily collect all the tokens, stuff them into a baggie, goes back in the tin, and you're ready to move on to your other board games or other filler games if you wish. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, stay bored.